Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. As we come back from the long Labor Day weekend, I want to take a moment to recognize and express our deeper appreciation for the talented and hardworking individuals who really make the Lowcountry go day after day. You know, Labor Day signals the close of our summer visitor season, and for many in our workforce, it's a day they're busy serving our thousands of guests. And as our guests choose to vacation here, and then we also select to provide the best service that we can provide to them each and every day. So a big shout out and a thank you to that hardworking group of talented individuals. You know, the Chamber is all about balance and balancing the quality of life for our residents while also ensuring the health and vitality of our economy that the visitors to our Lowcountry provide. One key initiative that we're kicking off is our annual resident sentiment survey on tourism, the largest survey of its kind in the region. And this week we're going to be deploying the survey, and we encourage residents to take a moment to share your thoughts. Your feedback is important as we work to shape the future of tourism in the Lowcountry. You know, before we dive into today's Power Hour, here's an interesting fact. Maybe you knew, maybe you didn't know. I didn't know, but that a Tesla charging station that you see at gas stations around the country can have as much drain on electricity pull as a 300-room hotel. For me, that really puts into perspective the kind of demand our power grid faces as the needs continue to grow. And while we're talking about power, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible work of the team at Palmetto Electric, especially for their response during and after Tropical Storm Debby. While other areas in our country sometimes wait weeks for power restoration following a storm, Palmetto Electric ensured that the few residents overall that lost power had it back quickly. They're a model for excellence, and it's a testament to the culture of their entire team, from the CEO to the linemen on the ground. And so I want to give a big shout out and a thank you to our first speaker today, Burl Davis, who is the president and CEO of Palmetto Electric Cooperative. We appreciate your commitment to excellence. And Burl, we're delighted to have you here today with us, and looking forward to you sharing your insights. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate those kind words that you gave to Palmetto. It's really an honor and a privilege to be here today, and really to be able to speak with two of the leaders in South Carolina as it pertains to the energy resources and the delivery of those resources that we need here in South Carolina, not just in the Lowcountry, but all over South Carolina. And so, Bill, I'd like to lead it off with just a little bit about just to remind people who Palmetto Electric is, and then some of the challenges that we have as we move forward, you know, in this transition to electrification of an economy, and the growth that we're seeing here in South Carolina, and also the entire region, southeastern region of the United States. But just as a quick overview, Palmetto Electric, of course, is electric cooperative. We are nonprofit, but we are a nonprofit corporation. And so we are owned by our members, and any profits that we make, we give back to our members in the form of capital credits. And so we're governed by a 12-member board from Beaufort County, Jasper County, and Hampton County, the three counties that we serve. And of course, the members elect our 12 board members that govern the cooperative. Palmetto Electric is a distribution electric cooperative, so that means that we provide the retail service to our customers / members that we serve in our area, in our service area. And we serve about 80,000. We have a little over 80,000 meters that we serve here again in Southern Beaufort County, Jasper, and Hampton counties. And And so really and truly, Bill, what our mission is, I know the mission is obviously to have competitive rates and reliable electric service, but really and truly, as you pointed out earlier, really Palmetto Electric's mission is really about making life better for our members in the areas that we serve, in the communities that we serve here in the low country of South Carolina. There's really, Bill, there's four things that I focus on really just daily, and when it comes to running Palmetto Electric, and really the four things. First is customer satisfaction and providing excellent service. And recently we completed our annual ACSI survey, which is a national survey standard for customer satisfaction that we use. And we scored a 90. And to put that in perspective, Chick-fil-A, which everyone loves to go to Chick-fil-A and knows the quality service that Chick-fil-A provides, they scored an 85 in this same survey. So that puts it in perspective. And so that's 9 years in a row that Palmetto Electric scored 89 or higher. Another core thing, of course, is really has to do with finances, which is rates, having the competitive rates. And then the other thing, the third value that I really focus on and Palmetto focuses on is safety. And any well-run company that you'll find has a good safety program. And recently we had an audit of our safety program from top to bottom. We do it every 3 years, and had a meeting with the leader of this team of auditors that came in and inspected our safety program, and all he could say was "wow." Kept saying "wow." And so really it just shows you what kind of safety initiative and program and culture that Palmetto Electric has, and I'm very proud of what we do each and every day to keep our employees safe. And really, it's all about the employees and what they do. And really, the fourth function that concerns us every day at Palmetto Electric really has to do with service reliability. And that's what we want to talk about, really focus on today. And when I talk about reliability, I'm not just talking about keeping the lights on a daily basis, with limbs falling into lines or trees falling into lines. Storms. Obviously, we're concerned about storms, and you mentioned Tropical Storm Debbie and the impact that it had, and it could have been a whole lot worse than it actually was. And certainly, those type things concern us. But really the one going forward is really having enough generation resources to provide electricity to our members on a reliable basis. And really there's challenges that we have not only in South Carolina, but also in this country, and it has to do with electrical generation of power. And so we're gonna get into that a little bit more, and really there's a few things that concern me, and really the one is the growth that we're seeing in South Carolina, and certainly we're seeing growth in our area, but the type growth that I'm talking about is really a lot of manufacturers and a lot of folks want to come to South Carolina and the southeastern United States to locate their businesses and industries into our state. And then Rob Hosteller, who is going to follow me, he's going to talk some more about this growth that is happening all over South Carolina, and in particular data centers, and how much energy that they use. And so I'm going to leave that up to Rob to talk about that. But some of this second concern really has to do with the electrification of the economy. And you mentioned a Tesla supercharger and how much power or how much electricity that a supercharger, a class 3 supercharger that you were referring to, will charge up to 8 cars. And as you point out, how much electricity that they use. That we have to install a transformer the same size as you mentioned to serve a 300 room hotel. The same size transformer that would serve a Walmart, a large Walmart in our service territory. So that just puts it in perspective. A couple years ago, when we were coming through COVID and out of COVID, one of my annual meeting speeches that there was a big push to movement towards EVs nationally. And I mentioned in my annual meeting speech then that EVs would account to 40 to 50% of new vehicles by 2030. Things have changed since then. That is slowing down. You are hearing the major car manufacturers around the country that are slowing down their manufacture of EVs. I've heard Ford here recently, they've stopped manufacturing several types of EVs that they originally had started manufacturing and moving away from EVs to hybrids. But we still have a big push for EVs, not only in this country, but in South Carolina. As we know, BMW is announced recently to start manufacturing a new EV in the upstate. They also partnered with a battery manufacturer to construct batteries for EVs in South Carolina. I know in the Low Country over in the Charleston area, there's a large recycling battery manufacturer is locating there. Volvo over in that same area is going to be manufacturing EVs. So I still think EVs are coming. But recently we did a survey along with our ACSI survey, and this is the kind of generally what you see and hear around the country and read on a daily basis. But this survey that we did last year, and we asked how many of our members own or lease an EV, and it was 7%. Last year, we asked, the next question was, how many intend to buy an EV in the next 5 years? And it was 16%. And how many have no plans to buy an EV was 72%. This year, the survey, which was completed several weeks ago, how many already own or lease an EV? Is the same 7% as last year. How many intend on buying a new EV in the next 5 years? And it dropped from 16% down to 8%. So it dropped in half. And no plans to purchase an EV is 80%. So that gives you some indication of what's going on in the EV world. But I still think they're still coming, and it's just going to be at a slower pace, and probably that's a good thing because it allows the electric industry to adjust and get the necessary infrastructure in place to be able to accommodate EVs. And one of the other issues that, of course, we have with EV construction is that actually, if everyone owned an EV in their neighborhood, the transformer capacity that we have, the existing transformer capacity, it would be a challenge to be able to serve those existing homes with the same size transformers. So we would have to upgrade transformers, and we may even have to upgrade the wiring infrastructure, underground infrastructure, overhead infrastructure, whatever it may be. And so that's some of the challenges that we have, and we're going to take an opportunity, but at the same time, it's an opportunity to save on carbon and climate change and all those type things. So there are opportunities here for our industry, and certainly we will be prepared for. So I wanted to transition in now. I wanted to talk, just give you a little bit of a feel for how we work with Palmetto Electric. Again, we're a distribution cooperative, and we own the substations, but we take power from transmission lines. And there's 19 electric cooperatives in South Carolina, and we own an entity called Central Electric Cooperative. And Central is led by Rob, and Rob's going to be talking to you to talk a little bit about the transmission network. And then after Rob is Jimmy Staten. Jimmy is the CEO of Santee Cooper. And Santee Cooper is a state-owned utility, of course, owned by the state of South Carolina. And Central buys 70% or 75% of its power from Santee Cooper. So Central owns and builds certain transmission lines. Santee Cooper owns some of the transmission network that serves the electric cooperatives in South Carolina, but Santee Cooper operates and maintains those transmission lines. But really and truly, Central is an organization owned by the cooperatives, so we can come together and buy power in bulk quantities, and that's what Central does on behalf of the electric cooperatives in South Carolina. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rob Bill and let him talk about the growth that's going on in South Carolina, as well as the need for not only new generation, but also the need to upgrade the electrical transmission grid and modernize the grid here in South Carolina. So I'm going to turn it over to Rob now, Bill.
Okay, thank you, Burl. And as we're turning it over to Rob, I'd certainly like to say congratulations on your 90 score. And the comparison you made certainly puts that into perspective. Wow and reliability go right there together. So thank you for that. And we look forward to hearing from Rob.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Thanks, Burl. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. So Burl, you set the stage very well, and I'm going to try to make that transition to Jimmy. But as Burl stated, Central's owned and provides power to all 19. There are 19 in our state distribution cooperatives in South Carolina, one of those being Palmetto Electric, where Burl is the CEO. The Central board is made up of 38 board members, 2 from each cooperative. So Burl is member owned. Those members own Central. So in effect, Central is member owned. The cooperative started building transmission about 83 years ago, 1941, to deliver electricity to the rural parts of South Carolina, and officially formed Central, the organization that I lead, in 1948. Central originally built network transmission that serves the co-ops throughout the state, and built one of the first coal power plants in the state, the now demolished Granger plant in Conway. But our forebears made a really smart decision, and the co-ops built for those, but they leased those facilities to Santee Cooper in a lease-to-own agreement. And Jimmy's going to talk about Santee Cooper, but it saved on property taxes, ultimately saving end consumers money. And so today, through 900 miles of radial transmission lines, we, Central, connect the various network transmission systems to the electric cooperatives. In our state, network transmission is provided by Duke Energy, Dominion Energy, and Santee Cooper. So to help explain that a little bit, if you will, the network transmission lines to me are the interstates for delivering power. That's network transmission. That's what Duke, Dominion, and Santee Cooper provide, these interstates. Central then builds the highways, we call them tap lines or radial lines, that connect those interstates, the network transmission, to 468 delivery points. Burl called them substations for the 19 co-ops. The co-ops then deliver distribution to the retail area, the homes and businesses via distribution systems. So you've got the interstate systems network, the radial systems are the tap lines or the highways, and the distribution co-ops are delivering power straight to someone's home. Central currently buys power through 3 long-term contracts. Duke Energy Carolina is about 24% of the cooperative's needs, Santee Cooper 75% of the cooperative needs, and SEPA, which is the Southeastern Power Administration, which provides the hydropower from the Savannah River, is about 1%. In 2024, just to tell you the amount of energy that we're selling, Central will have revenue of about $1.6 billion. We'll sell over 21 billion kilowatt hours of energy to our members. And I would say, and I think Burl would agree with this, Jimmy probably as well, for the last decade, rates have really been stable in South Carolina, but rates are going up. And so I want to talk a little bit about cost control before I get into demand. And so for cost control and to stay competitive, the local cooperatives cooperate. They form entities such as Central. And they do that so they can stay those hometown utility companies, but compete with the large investor-owned utilities. And in our state, the cooperatives cooperate on 4 things. One is a trade association, so training, government relations, legal advice, safety programs. They own a supply company together. They do economic development together, and they form Central, and they own Central. And Central's role is managing large, complex power contracts. We implement demand-side management initiatives, and I'll talk just a little bit more about that. We do forecasting for them. We do billing for them. But perhaps one of the most important things we do is we do resource planning. Where do we get our power from today, and where are we going to get it in the future? And we have this mantra really throughout the industry, but definitely within the co-ops, is even when rates are going up, we're working hard to control costs by putting downward pressure on rates. So even in rising rate times, we're trying to put downward pressure, but continue to deliver safe, reliable, and environmentally responsible power every day. And as Burl said, there's more to reliability than just trees. So what is the future of Central, the future of our industry? The future of Central is we've had these very big contracts, Duke and Santee Cooper, but we're diversifying. We're increasing power we get from already existing nuclear plants, trying to reduce our carbon footprint. We're doing solar with Santee Cooper, and solar provides lots of energy, but it's not always available. We're looking to more clean burning natural gas, burns cleaner than coal, but it's always available. When someone flips a light switch on, things like natural gas burning power plants will be there to back up that need. And that natural gas units also pair very well with renewables. More natural gas allows more renewables to come on the system. But demand is increasing, and we see that through sales increasing. So as Burl said, electric vehicles are increasing, and Burl gave you some numbers for your area, but we did a survey. The numbers are still relevant, but one of the things I found most interesting, this is a number of years ago, we found that if someone owns 1 electric vehicle, so if they own 1, there's a 30% chance they own 2. To me, that data point said that people who own electric vehicles tend to like them. So Central has partnered with UC Davis, University of California, Davis. They've been leading this modeling of service territories and where electric vehicles are likely to come into various electric utility service areas. And what they're finding is the more affluent suburban areas will drive EV growth. And that to me is perfect for the Hilton Head Bluffton area, driving that EV growth in our state. Interestingly, electric vehicles are controllable load, meaning that we can control when things charge through charging stations. We can manage that load over 24 hours. It drives sales, but not necessarily peak. That is, unless someone is traveling. And when they're traveling, they want to charge their car whenever necessary, versus when they're just driving around their home. Perhaps they don't mind charging in the evening or charging in what we call off hours. So we see electric vehicles driving sales and people using their electric vehicles for traveling, driving peak. But we're waiting to see in South Carolina, we have one of the biggest, on a per capita basis, one of the biggest used market categories. And so one of the things I think is going to be interesting is Are we going to develop a used EV market in South Carolina? And will we see more adoption as more what I'll call pre-owned electric vehicles are used? The other thing that's happening in our state that's driving electricity need is electrification of various industries. Just industries trying to move away from using natural gas, using any kind of fossil fuel, and instead trying to electrify their industries. Then third, as I said, the co-ops cooperate on economic development. And 2023 was a record year. And really, since I've been here, I've been in South Carolina about 10 years, we just see record years year after year. And for instance, we see data centers. Meta announced in Aiken County is going to be co-op served, just announced last week. Google has been around for quite a while and served by Berkeley Electric. Volvo served by Edisto Electric. Samsung served by Newberry County. Hyundai in Savannah was probably going to bring lots of opportunities to the area. We saw that with BMW. BMW is not served by electric co-ops, but the suppliers to BMW have come to co-op territory. And so we believe the Hyundai plant in Savannah will bring opportunities for commercial loads, industrial loads down to the Hilton Head area, Bluffton area. But let's talk specifically about data centers. And this is one point that I find particularly interesting. A typical Google search, something we've all been doing for years, takes about a kilowatt hour of energy for a typical Google search. What's a kilowatt hour? It's 10 light bulbs in your home running for about an hour. And the AI search, so artificial intelligence search, where you're asking it to do a little bit of analytics, takes about 9 kilowatt hours of energy. That's a typical home for about an hour. So we're going from a Google search, just running light bulbs, if you will, to an AI search that takes what a typical home would use. But I also find interesting, those are the things we as consumers want. We want those things. So we're going to see data centers, AI data centers spread. In South Carolina, I saw recently, though it's nothing official because they like to remain relatively secret, but about 13 data centers are kind of looking to our state right now. But you can compare that to Northern Virginia, 300. Phoenix, Arizona, they're looking at 80 just in the Phoenix area. The Atlanta area, 80. But these data centers are going in all over the country, and that's causing a rise in power consumption. They aren't like charging an electric vehicle where I need to charge now, but I'm going to use it. They are running consistently, and their load factors, the time that they're on, run in the high 90, doesn't reach 100%, but high 90 percentiles of when they need their power. So if we want the power to stay on, we need new power plants. And really, I would say we need them fast. So now I'm setting the stage for Jimmy. Jimmy, it's about your turn. But people can choose when to use their own power. And I think you're going to start to see incentives out there from utilities to say, how can we, the typical consumer, slow the need for power plants when we've got AI and data centers driving that need? And again, I would tell you, perhaps we as individuals have the ability to slow but not stop, choosing when to charge a vehicle, when to do things in your home, like maybe dry your clothes, preheating or pre-cooling your home so you're not running on peak. And really any electrical device, deciding when you can choose it. And I think you're going to see a lot of companies try to help consumers control when they use electricity. But as I said, that's slow the need for power plants, but not stop. And in South Carolina, that's where we're at. So I'd like to introduce my friend Jimmy Staten, who's going to talk a little bit more about power plants and our need for power plants. So Bill, thank you very much. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Staten.
Thanks, Rob. Really appreciate the introduction. Appreciate the opportunity. First of all, I should say good morning to everyone. Thank you all for joining us virtually. Thanks for the opportunity for the three of us to talk with you all. And while it feels like there's three separate groups here, and there are three separate groups here, we are wholly integrated. Burl Davis sits on the board of Santee Cooper. So not only is he the CEO of Palmetto Electric, but he sits on the board as an ex officio member of Santee Cooper. Rob Hostetler is my good friend. He's my largest customer, and he also is a previous member of the board of Santee Cooper. And so the way we operate together, the way that we look at the entire needs for South Carolina is we do that on a very integrated basis. Now, again, I'm Jimmy Staten. I'm President and CEO at Santee Cooper, and I represent the 1,600 people at Santee Cooper that live their mission every single day. And that mission is very simple. It is to be the leading resource to improve the lives of South Carolinians. And I'll talk about how we do that in just a moment. But just to give you a little bit of background about Santee Cooper, Rob talked about when Central was created. Santee Cooper was created 90 years ago. And in large part, we were created to help the cooperatives electrify South Carolina. One of the other things we were built for, if you will, is it's to help serve the Allied forces during World War II. There was a plant in North Charleston that was making specialized steel to protect tanks, and we started providing electricity so that metal could be produced. And so again, that's the start of how we came about. But in large part, it was let's help the rural parts of South Carolina continue to develop. Now, Santee Cooper, we're unique. You'll hear a lot about this. You heard from Rob and you heard from Burl that they are nonprofit organizations. We are as well. We are a state-owned utility. We are owned by the state of South Carolina, but in large part, we operate independent of that. We do not receive any tax dollars, and we don't receive anything from the state. We generate our own revenues. We borrow our own money to make investments in our infrastructure, generation and transmission. And we'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. We do pay a dividend back to the state. It represents about 1% of our total revenues every year. So while we are state-owned, we operate kind of independently of that. What we're not an investor-owned utility. We don't have what we think of as traditional shareholders, where we have to pay a dividend or we have to watch where the stock price is going for those folks that have made that investment in us. The dividends that we truly pay are affordable, reliable energy and water service to the people of South Carolina. So you all, quite frankly, are the shareholders of Santee Cooper, and our objective, our desire is to make sure that you're seeing the dividends with lower cost, more reliable energy resources. And so that's the way that we focus on can we bring the greatest value. Now, again, I mentioned a minute ago that our mission is to improve the lives of South Carolinians. And so our focus and how we do that is fourfold. You heard something similar from Burl. First and foremost is our job is to power South Carolina. We generate power right now from about 6,000 megawatts of generation, and it's a diverse set of resources. And again, when you think about a megawatt, think about the power used by about 700 homes. So that's what a megawatt is. And so we use about 6,000, or we have about 6,000 megawatts that we generate electricity different times during the day to provide service to throughout South Carolina. It's a fairly diverse mix of resources. We have nuclear, we have coal, and in fact, we're very heavy on coal. That represents about 65% of our total generation capacity. We have natural gas. We have relatively significant hydro or hydropower. So, operating the dams that we operate, and we have some solar. We're going to talk a minute about where are we moving to, where do we need to go, and solar is going to be a big part. Renewable resources in general will be a big part of how we continue to move forward. So we power South Carolina. We also operate the most extensive electric transmission grid in South Carolina. And again, so think about it. We generate it, we wholesale move it, essentially, similar to highways and roads throughout the state. And then we turn it over to Rob and to Burl, and they distribute it further to homes and businesses. That's the primary part of our business. The second part, though, that we focus on is we do energize directly some homes and businesses in Berkeley, Horry, and Georgetown counties. And so we serve direct homes and businesses similar to Hilton Head in the beach area of Myrtle Beach. Our focus there is very similar to what Burl was talking about. Our focus is reliable, affordable, resilient energy, focused on how do we address the growing needs of that area as well, because as you all know, all of South Carolina is growing pretty rapidly. The third area of focus for us is we hydrate communities. We are blessed to be able to operate Lake Moultrie and Lake Marion, and we utilize that water in order to bring clean, affordable, reliable water to about 220,000 customers in conjunction with local agencies, about 220,000 customers throughout the Low Country. And we intend to continue to expand the ability to bring clean water to communities that need it throughout the Low Country of South Carolina. And in fact, right now we have capability of delivering about almost 50 million gallons a day of water, and we're continuing to find ways to increase that. And then the last area that we focus on, because we are state-owned, is how do we help South Carolina thrive? And we do that in a number of ways. Number one, again, I mentioned the water plants or the water that we operate today. Those are also great recreational opportunities, and so we bring in a lot of tourism dollars into the state, almost $500 million related to our operation of the lakes. We have this extensive transmission infrastructure that runs throughout the state, throughout a lot of rural parts of South Carolina. So one of our responsibilities is to ensure that we are utilizing that the best way possible. One way that we do that is to allow folks to connect their broadband opportunity or their broadband wiring on our system in order to serve those rural communities. Because as you all know, if you bring broadband to rural communities, you're going to see economic development. And so we don't provide broadband itself, we just provide some of the infrastructure to help make that happen. And then lastly, we're very focused on economic, like Rob talked about, like Burl talked about, we're very focused on economic development. We provide a lot of grants and loans throughout the state in order to provide economic opportunity. We also had the opportunity to acquire the land that Volvo operates on right now. And so we call that area Camp Hall. Volvo is there. Redwood Materials, who is the company that is a battery recycling business that Burl mentioned, they're located at Camp Hall. DC Blocks, who is bringing communications technology throughout the state of South Carolina, they're located at Camp Hall. So it's a commerce center that was developed by Santee Cooper, but in conjunction with Berkeley Electric, Edisto Electric, the county of Berkeley, and others throughout the state that helped bring all of those businesses to South Carolina. And then the last thing that we're doing is we're working with the federal government to get funding to provide resiliency grants throughout South Carolina, and several of the cooperatives have won those grants, if you will. And so we are providing that opportunity, distributing those dollars so that we can help them provide a more resilient operation for their members throughout the state. So that's who Santee Cooper is. That's what we focus on. But as Rob mentioned, and Burl, the state is growing like crazy. Reindustrialization has come to South Carolina. We're seeing great opportunities to bring new businesses like BMW, like Volvo, like others into the state. But as people flock to West Virginia, as businesses South Carolina, as they flock to South Carolina, we're starting to continue to see data centers follow behind that. Rob gave you all a great description of the power usage of data centers. I do think that information technology is necessary in order to continue to attract new businesses and new people to South Carolina. So we have worked in partnership with Central and the cooperatives on a plan our plan. We call it our integrated resource plan. What's the roadmap for what new resources do we need to bring to South Carolina so that we can continue to ensure the reliable energy that Burl talked about? And so part of that plan, and I'm going to break it into two parts. One is Rob mentioned always on capacity. I call it dispatchable capacity. That is, you can adjust it up and down as you need to. I'm going to contrast that with energy, which is generally what we see from renewables, like solar or like wind. They're on when they're on, but when the sun's not shining, they're not providing energy at that moment. And so we've got to have dispatchable capacity to pair with that energy so that we can bring the lowest cost and the most reliable service to the table. And so when we think about that roadmap going forward, we're talking about bringing 1,000 megawatts of new natural gas combined cycle plants. That is the most efficient natural gas technology you can bring to the table right now. We're going to do that in conjunction with Central. We're going to do it, but we're going to build it in conjunction with Dominion so that we can take advantage of the economies of scale and reduce the cost of that. Because as Rob mentioned, our jobs, all of our jobs, is to make sure we keep downward pressure on pricing for all of our customers. So that we're also going to have to make some investment in combustion turbines around the state, and that's just those are plants that you can turn on and turn off quickly in order to meet peak needs. But again, those provide dispatchable capacity to you. We're also going to be bringing about 300 megawatts of battery power to the table. So while that doesn't provide a lot of energy, you can charge those batteries and then you can pull from those batteries when you need the capacity, like what we needed on December of 2022, to Christmas Eve, December 2022, when the state was really challenged. And then on the energy side, we are very focused on ensuring that we're moving away. We're reducing the use of fossil fuels as much as we can, and bringing renewable resources to the state. So in conjunction with Rob, and Rob mentioned this, we're bringing about 2,100 megawatts of solar to the table over the next 7 to 10 years. So we will be working with third parties to bring additional solar resources to the table so that we can meet all of the ongoing needs. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, so that's on the generating side. We need to bring that capacity to the table, but we also need a more robust transmission system in order to be able to ensure that we can move that electricity around the state effectively. You're not going to put solar necessarily where you had a gas plant, for instance. You're going to distribute it where it makes the most sense. So if we're going to have a more distributed network, we need a more robust transmission system. And so we're working with Rob and his team to make sure that we're making the best investments to create a more robust system. I think of it as right now we operate with a lot of state roads. We might need an interstate highway in order to move some of that electricity around. So that's where our focus is as we look forward, as we look to continue to deal with to address the growth in South Carolina. We do it in conjunction with our largest customer. We do it with other stakeholders so that everyone has a voice, and we're trying to bring an all of the above approach for new generation to South Carolina. And with that, Burl and Bill, I'll conclude my remarks, and we can open it up for any other comments or questions.
All right. Thank you, Jimmy and Rob and Burl. It's been a very informative morning. If you have time, we have a few questions I'd like to ask coming from our listeners. The first one's coming from John, and John is asking, has a conversation started around virtual power plants as a way to promote solar and allow Palmetto Electric or others to draw during the times of high loads?
Yeah, Bill, you want me to try that one and see if Jimmy or Burl want to add anything? Virtual power plants means someone aggregating the end consumer's ability to reduce their power, but being able to prove it. So we call it virtual, which I will tell you, people in the industry are starting to take exception to because they're not real power plants. As Jimmy said, we've got to build some new power plants. But the idea is, can we do things as individuals to control load so that we don't need to build as much power plants or as new power plants as possible? And you see some big industries getting into this. Some of the car manufacturers, General Motors actually formed a utility division. Google owns Nest. And I don't think it's too far a stretch to say they want to be able to control and aggregate HVAC systems. Generac, who supplies home electricity, want to be able to do those things. And so I think virtual power plants are coming, but I would tell you, Bill and others listening, it's at the very top. And when you have a data center that's coming that's saying 200 megawatts that they need power, and Jimmy using the 700 homes per megawatt, that's a lot of homes that have to control to take over for the need to build a power plant for data centers. So I don't know, Burl or Jimmy, if either one of you want to add anything to that or not.
Rob, I'll add to that. And of course, Palmetto Electric has been a leader in load management programs, and really and truly, that is a component of a virtual power plant. And we have over 40,000 water heaters, electric water heaters that are under control that we use during peak periods. And I would venture to say that we have more controlled water heaters than probably any other entity in the state of South Carolina. Also, we added through Central's help a couple of years ago. We had, as Rob mentioned, the HVAC. We have a thermostat program that we use and that we promote, and it's been very successful, to be honest with you. And so we continue to promote that program, and I'm sure there's going to be other programs that we see coming in the future. And again, I know Jimmy mentioned really large scale batteries, but I do see battery technology improving. And eventually I do think that we will be able to use batteries in folks' homes, or even electric vehicle batteries, to be able to provide power back to the grid at some point in time. All of that is coming. It really is. And we are monitoring it. And of course, everything that we do at Palmetto Electric, we have to make sure that it brings value to our members. So other members are not subsidizing programs to build programs. So we have to make sure that they do bring value to the entire cooperative when we do implement these programs. But yes, I think it's going to play a role as we move forward into the future.
Yep. And if the only thing I would add there is, because again, I think Rob and Burl hit it on the head. Obviously, where we directly serve, we're looking at the same types of opportunities. And I certainly see EVs being both a feeder and a user of energy from time to time. But my role, because I'm more on the wholesale side, my role, I think, in order to help serve Rob and Burl, is to ensure that we can provide some adequate price signals to people so that there's value for those virtual power plants, so that as Rob and Burl are able to aggregate that capacity, they're seeing some value for that, because there is value to the wholesale provider like me. It reduces our cost, right? Because I don't have to build, perhaps we don't have to build as much generation. And anything we can do to reduce the amount of generation we have to build will bring lower costs to consumers. So if we can provide the right price signals, then I think we can help Rob and Burl do even more on that side of the business. But again, I think the cooperatives of South Carolina have as robust a set of programs of demand side management as I've generally seen. So again, I think as a state we're doing well, but obviously there's a lot more we can do.
Okay, thank you. Another question is coming from Bernie, and Bernie is asking, are you concerned about the impact of AI?
Rob, you're muted.
Yeah, let me unmute. Yeah, Bill, I guess to go first. I'm more excited about AI and what AI can do. I think when we talk about things like virtual power plants, and as Jimmy said, we already through programs like Burl, we can control 150 megawatts of demand side management. We haven't called them virtual power plants because we don't have that feedback loop. And FERC, the federal government's going to say, if you want to consider it a power plant, you have to have a feedback loop that really demonstrates you're doing it. But we today can control about 150 megawatts. I think things like AI only make that better. So I would say I'm not concerned about AI and the Terminator type AI. I'm more excited about it and what it can do for our country. And as Jimmy said, I want to drive home. I think if your state wants to remain competitive in the future for all industries and consumers, they're going to want that AI closer to home. They want to be close to those things. And so we need data centers. We need AI data centers close if we want to stay competitive. So Burl, Jimmy, I don't know if either one of you would like to add anything.
Burl, were you going to? I'll let you go move first if you wanted to, or no? Okay. Like Rob, I'm thrilled by the opportunities.
Get off mute, Jimmy, but yeah, go ahead.
I think that I'm thrilled by the opportunities that AI will provide. I think AI will enable us to operate our systems more effectively, get more out of them, make us more efficient just generally. So I'm excited about that side of it. Obviously, we also operate along with Rob. We operate what we think of as critical infrastructure, and so AI from a cyber protection perspective, that probably scares me a little bit. And so I want to make sure that as Rob said, we have as much AI technology on our side of the table to be able to fend off some of those potential cyber issues. But overall, I think AI is going to provide a heck of a lot more benefit than there are concerns about AI.
I'll add to it. I agree with everything that Rob and Jimmy have said. You know, one of the things too that AI and these data centers, they can help lower cost, and that is because they are large users, and it's like a large manufacturer with a very high load factor. So they're using power constantly throughout the day. So they are not only consuming energy, but they also helping pay for the new generation that is going to be needed here in South Carolina. So on average, they can lower costs for our members. So from that perspective, I do like AI.
Okay. All right. Thank you. A couple more questions and we'll wrap up. The next one's coming from Joe. And Joe is asking, what is the estimated cost to meet the future energy needs of development in our state?
Joe, first, thank you for the question, Bill. That's a good question. That's tricky. Average cost for development, I would tell, as Burl said, rates are going up. Inflation has gone up. The price to build power plants have gone up. But the economics of our older plants are also starting to struggle. And so the price of development, I would just tell you, I think of it as energy prices. And energy prices are going to go up and typically have gone up with inflation, perhaps just a little bit lower than inflation. And I might explain it that way. Jimmy, Burl, it's probably right in your wheelhouse to help as well.
Yeah, right. Our intent at Santee Cooper is to keep any rate increases over time below the rate of inflation. And obviously, you know, inflation at 8% isn't what we were thinking about. We're thinking about regular inflation. Our intent is to, and I think we can do that. This is an interesting time, and I think it's an incredible time, both for the electric grid in South Carolina, but for the state of South Carolina. We will be building all of this infrastructure in the midst of growth, very significant growth. And that growth will have a tendency to dampen the overall impact on the necessary infrastructure. And again, these are long-lived investments, so we're not going to be recovering all of them in any single year. We'll be stretching those costs out over time. It's significant. I estimate, this is my estimation, it's not a state estimation, but I think we're going to have to spend across the state of South Carolina, including Santee Cooper, Central, the Duke, Dominion. I think we're going to have to spend in excess of about $20 billion over the next 10 to 15 years. But again, I think we can do that while keeping the impact on rates relatively modest, because we have that opportunity to build into a growth environment.
All right, thank you. Our last question is coming from Sharon, and Sharon's asking, what area will you build a new power plant?
Jimmy, that's probably let you take that one.
That one sounds like me. The natural gas fired plant that we're talking about, we plan on building in Kennedy's. It's a site of an old coal plant. So it's effectively a brownfield site that already has a lot of infrastructure there. And so that is where we would build the larger natural gas plant. As we think about the challenge of getting more natural gas into South Carolina, when we talk about combustion turbines, they too will use natural gas. We expect that those will be placed closest to the pipelines, and most of those pipelines run kind of on the outer edge, the western edge of South Carolina. So we would expect to see those there. Solar, on the other hand, I think those are going to be dotted throughout the state. I think where there's good sun, available property, and access to the transmission grid. I think so you're going to see a more distributed set of resources when you think about adding solar and natural gas at different areas of the state. Rob, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
The only thing I was going to mention, just for everybody's benefit, Jimmy referred to Kennedy's. That is an old coal plant site in Colleton County, just north of Walterboro, to give you some perspective, location where it would be built. Jimmy referred to build natural gas and the need for natural gas in South Carolina. And that is something that is vitally important, because you can't build a new natural gas fired plant without gas, of course. And South Carolina is limited, especially in the low country, in the Midlands and low country of South Carolina. We don't have adequate capacity of natural gas in South Carolina to be able to operate these plants. So those lines will have to be built. And so that can be a challenge. Just like building a new transmission line. It can be a challenge. It takes time. It takes a lot of engineering as well as environmental work that has to be done, and environmental approvals that need to be done. And as we all know, regulations are getting more stringent instead of less stringent. And so that is a big challenge and a big need. But we do, and locally we have certainly the support of the local legislative delegation in the low country, and Senator Davis, Tom Davis, has been very active and very supportive of the need for new generation resources here in South Carolina. And so we're very appreciative of Tom and his efforts and his interest in energy in South Carolina.
Burl, Rob, and Jimmy, thank you. It's been a terrific discussion this morning. Very, very informative, and we appreciate your time. And I also want to say thank you for the roles each of your organization plays in economic development throughout the state of South Carolina. And when you start thinking about BMW or Volvo or Samsung, those are Google, those Meta, I guess, too, throw that one in. Those are household names in the economic development world, as you all know better than I do. But thank you for that. And we appreciate what each of you do and your organizations do. And most of all, thank you for being with us today. Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you, Bill.